I was in my kitchen making coffee when I heard this awful, desperate shout from outside. You know, the kind of sound that just makes your stomach clench. I ran over to the window, and what I saw just broke my heart. My neighbor, Mark, was sitting in his wheelchair right in the middle of the parking lot. He was just staring at an empty parking space, looking like his whole world had just been stolen from him. His van, his only accessible van, was gone. I didn't even stop to put on shoes. I just ran straight outside. "Mark, what happened?" I asked. He just lifted a trembling hand and pointed at the empty asphalt. "My van. They took it," he said, his voice shaking. "My chairlift, my medical gear, everything was in there." "See?" Mark's a veteran. He lost the use of his legs years ago. That van wasn't just a car to him. It was his independence, his mobility, his freedom. Without it, he was literally trapped in his own home. And who was watching this whole heartbreaking scene unfold? Our HOA president, Karen. She was standing on her porch, holding a clipboard like it was some kind of royal scepter. She didn't even pretend to be concerned. "Oh, that van," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "It violated our community appearance standards. Ugly vehicles, lower property values. I had it removed." Removed. She said it like it was a bag of trash on the curb. I swear, for a second, the entire world went silent. "He needs that van," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's ADA compliant. He lives here." Karen just shrugged. He should have read the updated HOA handbook. Here's the thing. There was no updated handbook. There was no warning, no community meeting, nothing. Just pure cruelty. Mark looked completely defeated. He tried to call his doctor, but his hands were shaking so badly he couldn't even dial his phone. And Karen, she just stood there watching him suffer like it was some kind of free entertainment, before turning and walking back into her house. That was the exact moment I knew this was not going to end quietly. This was war. The next morning, Karen was probably sitting in her house, thinking she'd won. Mark and I spent hours drafting an email to the entire HOA board. We attached photos, documents, proof of his disability accommodation, everything. And guess how many people answered? Just one. "Karam?" Her reply was short and cold. The removal was lawful. Stop harassing the HOA. Harassing? Harassing? Harassing her? She had just illegally towed a disabled veteran's only means of transportation, and we were the ones harassing her. I couldn't believe it. I started talking to other neighbors, and the stories came pouring out. People were whispering through cracked doors, terrified to speak up. "She fines people if their kids leave a bike on the lawn," one person told me. "She threatened to tow our stroller from our driveway," said another. It became clear that everyone was living in fear of this woman. Everyone, that is, except me. I was just getting started. That night, I became a legal expert. I stayed up for hours, fueled by coffee and pure rage, reading through every HOA rule, state law, ADA regulation, and civil rights page I could find online. My eyes were burning, but I kept digging. And then, there it was, a shining beacon of hope in a sea of legal jargon. The law was crystal clear. Homeowners associations must provide reasonable accommodations for disabled residents. Towing an accessible vehicle without proper notice is a direct violation of both the Americans with Disabilities Act and state law. Karam hadn't just broken a petty HOA rule. She had broken the law, and she was about to find out exactly what that meant. The next morning was like a scene out of a movie. The sheriff's cars rolled silently into our quiet little neighborhood. I swear you could feel the entire community wake up at once. Curtains twitched, blinds snapped open, and people pressed their faces against the glass. Karen, of course, strutted out of her house like she was the star of some reality TV show, ready for a close-up. "Officers," she began, all puffed up. "I'm the HOA press." They cut her off mid. "We're here regarding the illegal removal of a disabled resident's vehicle," one of the deputies said. "We need to see the warnings, the board meeting minutes, the vote records, and the added documentation you provided before the tow. Karen just blinked, her confident smirk finally faltering. "Ada doesn't apply here," she stammered. "This is private property." The deputy's tone dropped about 20 degrees. "Yes, it does apply," he said, his voice ice. "And right now, it looks like you've violated both state and federal law." That's when the phones came out. Neighbors started stepping out onto their porches, recording everything. Even the birds seemed to go quiet. But here's the real twist. 2 other board members, the ones who had been too scared to speak up before, had already talked to the sheriff. They confirmed that they had never seen a proposal, never attended a meeting, and never, ever voted to have Marks van towed. She was completely, utterly alone. The fall of Karen was swift and spectacular. When the deputies told her to call the tow company and have the van returned immediately, with all fees waived, she looked like her soul had just been vacuumed out of her body. She put the tow company on speakerphone, and the guy on the other end started to argue until the sheriff calmly introduced himself. Suddenly, that van was on its way back faster than a pizza delivery on a Friday night. When the van pulled up and that ramp lowered, letting Mark get his freedom back, the entire block erupted in applause. Kids, adults, even the grumpy old guy who lives on the corner, everyone was clapping. Karen had to sign official papers right there in front of the whole neighborhood, acknowledging that she had knowingly violated the law. Her hands were shaking the entire time. 1 week later, the real justice started rolling in. An ADA compliance officer paid a visit. The board held an emergency meeting and voted her out unanimously. Then, the HOA's own insurance company fined her, personally, for the legal liability she had created. The community immediately put in new rules to protect disabled residents, mandated ADA training for all future board members, and permanently marked several new accessible parking spaces. And now, Mark rolls by every single morning, a huge smile on his face as his ramp lowers. The neighborhood kids run over to help him with his groceries. People wave. The whole community feels human again, like a heavy shadow has been lifted. As for Karen, she walks fast now, avoids eye contact with everyone, and I haven't seen her touch a clipboard since. Every time she has to walk past that big blue van, you can practically see the guilt eating her up from the inside. So, what do you think? Would you forgive her, or did she get exactly what she deserved? Let me know in the comments, and make sure you follow for more insane HOA stories.